So the machine we'll be doing a treatment on today is the DermaSweep, and before we get started with the actual treatment we're going to have Corey here who's going to prepare the skin. Corey?
Thank you. So the skin's prepared well with DermaSweep. The cleaner the skin is, the better the treatment will be. We're just using a Butte Pacific foam cleanser here to remove all the makeup.
Is there any reason why you like to use the Butte Pacific product, Corey?
I think it personally I think it cleanses the makeup very well, but it also prepares the skin, and also the after treatments for laser, for microdermabrasion, actually heals the skin. It aids the healing process very quickly as well. I think Trish's skin will also benefit from doing a mild chemical and mechanical peel now before we do the dermabrasion.
So is that what you're using now?
Yeah.
This is a gentle exfoliator, is that correct? Or?
It's actually from the clinical range, and it's called the Clinical Peel by Butte Pacific. Leave that on the skin for a few minutes. This product acts as both a mechanical plus a chemical peel. It prepares the skin well for before PDT, before dermabrasion and before IPL treatments. Okay, now we're going to remove the peel. We'll just calm the skin before we start the abrasion with an enriched tonic.
Do you always try and make the skin as dry as possible before the treatment as well?
Yes, you can have the skin dry because we're going to be infusing the skin with the solutions with the DermaSweep. So the main purpose is that you need to have the skin clean and well prepared, and this is ready to go.
So now we're going to start with the treatment, but before we do that we're going to take a quick look at the machine and show you the setup of it, because we're going to be using first of all the dry treatment canister to do a dry pass first. So we'll be using little disposable filters that we spoke about earlier, and these here. Come out of the bag. We'll get the tweezers. Just grab one of those there. These are disposable. And place that into the top of the canister, the dry treatment canister. These coloured tips denote different levels of abrasion, from black to grey being the heaviest. We also have a silk tip that is good for a third pass, where we actually do a polishing of the skin, which we'll show you later on in the treatment. And finally, we also have the body tip. The body tip is being designed to very quickly do larger body areas if we think of the décolletage, the back, arms, or anywhere over the entire body. So that'll be the treatment tips. You'll also note there, which we'll show a little bit later, the different solutions that we can use, and I'll go through them a little bit later. But first of all, you'll see here we have the tubing for the dry treatment. You'll note it's a single hose, whereas on the infusion hosing, you'll see there's a separate little tubing that goes alongside it where the fluid runs through. So the single hose here is what we use for the dry treatment. And all we need to do is simply pop that into the top there. And we're ready to go. So now, I'm going to put some gloves on, because of course we should all be wearing gloves when doing treatments. Now I like to start and treat the face very systematically and break it up into different segments. So I usually start myself. Now each one comes up with their own technique, but I usually like to start on the right hand side of the face as the first segment, then move across to the forehead, then the other side of the face, and the chin and nose separately. So we'll get started with that. Today, because Trish here has reasonably good skin that doesn't need a lot of work, but we can certainly clean it up a bit with the microderm. We're going to use a light to medium tip, which is the aqua blue. So it's not the heaviest one, and it's not the lightest one. It's a in between tip. All we do is simply screw that on to the end of our treatment wand, as you can see there. Now, what we need to do is grab the wand with one hand, put our thumb over the top like that to create a vacuum seal, and then we turn the system on. Now then we have, if you pan back to the DermaSweep, then we have different settings or different vacuum settings that we can use for different areas of the face. Now a standard setting I like to use is generally around the 47 kilopascal mark. So we need to get this vacuum first, because otherwise you'll see if I take my thumb off, I lose that vacuum number there. Okay, so now that we've got the appropriate level of vacuum, we're ready to treat. Now I'm just going to start along the side and work my way along. Now you'll note with standard microderms, most treatments are done like this. And you just do these single passes, which can allow for missed areas or streak marks. However, with the DermaSweep, the idea is to get a very even result and to do a sweeping motion, or as in the manual we use, it's called the eraser mode. So what we do is we place the wand on the skin and we actually pull away from the skin. Note how it sucks up the skin there. Actually put place, and then we drag along. And we actually don't take the handpiece off the skin. We move backwards and forwards like this. And what this enables us to do is get a very, very even result, and also control the depth of the treatment that we're actually giving. Because instead of doing 1 or 2 single passes like this, we're able to continue to go backwards and forwards until we get to the appropriate depth for this particular client, which means we can offer a real tailored service to each client. So keep in mind, this is very important that we get that suction and we pull away from the skin. And when we're doing the treatment, we're always pulling away from the skin. We are not pushing down. So we're just going to work our way across the cheek. You can see it's starting to get nice and pink there again. Now, because we're going to do a couple of passes, we don't need to go that deep on our first pass. We can just work our way along. You'll note how even the redness is. There's no streak marks here. Now, the other important point to remember is always keeping the wand perpendicular to the face. So the face isn't a square block. It doesn't just go like this, or a flat plane. You can see there's always curves in the face. So I don't want to go across the face keeping the wand in the same position. I always want to go with the curve. See how I move the wand so it's always at 90 degrees to the face? Keeping it perpendicular. And this mode that I'm doing here, you will also note in the manual, but it's nice just for lymphatic drainage. So now, again, pulling away from the skin, I'll do this next section. It's very important also to be systematic when doing the treatment, making sure that you don't miss any areas. You give each area an appropriate treatment. Now what I like to do is come from this angle and go across the cheek here up to a certain point. Because when we get up closer to underneath the eye, it's a much more sensitive area, and we're going to turn the vacuum down. So again, to get the right level, we need to create the suction. And I'm going to just turn it down now to about 40. Now what I like to do here is I don't go backwards and forwards underneath the eye, because then you'll be just pulling the skin backwards and forwards like this, and this can be uncomfortable for the client. So what I like to do is get the suction, pull away from the skin. And now this is when I do single strokes. But see how I keep tension here, so the whole skin doesn't move across. So I keep tension there, still pulling away, and just go very slowly. Because remember, this is a sensitive area and we don't want to go too fast. On people who have much more lax skin, you may need to move across with the wand, but as Trish has quite good skin, we can just keep our finger here. Now unlike crystal dermabrasion, because we don't have crystals or aluminium crystals firing into the skin, we can actually go right up onto the eyelids. So this allows us to treat a lot more areas. You can't do that with crystal abrasion because you'll get the particles into the eye, which is dangerous.